there have also been some interesting threads through it. I will point out two. One is that we've been told that globalization is over. Economic globalization may be having some problems, but political globalization is not. No region is independent of another. And I thought Condi had a great term when she said, credibility is not divisible. In that sense, what we heard from the first panel this morning on NATO and Ukraine till this final interesting session with Bob and Condi was that what we do in Ukraine is going to affect Asia and vice versa. And we've got to keep that in mind as we develop strategy. The other thread that I think links our panels today together was the interrelationship between domestic and foreign policy. We saw that when we talked about how do we increase resilience in the United States. We saw it when we talked about how we prepare a workforce which is better able to deal with the technological change that is having such a dramatic effect. We also saw it on the impact of populism on strategy, that what you think is a clear, rational strategy may not look the same. I was struck by the wonderful interviews that David Ignatius did. If we could just put Salam Fayyad and Amos Yadlin in a room and say, solve this, we could get it done. But neither of them could bring public opinion either in Palestine or in Israel along with them. So domestic and international aspects of strategy are tightly interrelated. We haven't solved any of these problems, but I think if the Aspen Strategy Forum helps to get you to think about them in a more interesting and creative way, then we've done our job. Anja?
Thank you, Joe. That is a perfect segue. Joe and I are now acutely aware that we are the only thing standing between you and a beer. So we're just going to be 30 seconds more. And I just want to follow on from what Joe said, because we ended appropriately with Condi and Bob with a real warning. They both said we have four very serious and powerful antagonists whose common purpose is to push the U.S. out of international leadership. But I want to lift up again what we heard all day, which is that when we work together in creative ways, we are doing just fine. It started with a NATO and Europe panel where we have been far more successful, if we're honest with ourselves, as an alliance, as a public sector, private sector partnership, what Europe and the US are doing together vis-a-vis Ukraine, far more successful than I think anyone thought when that horrible invasion happened in February of 2022. And we were reminded by Mara Karlin and Chris Crows about AUKUS. There are lots of creative things happen here. We have the Bahraini National Security Advisor telling us about something unprecedented that no one would have imagined 6 or 7 years ago, and that's the Abraham Accords. And by the way, in spite of the horrific news coming out of Israel and Gaza and everything that has happened there, the Abraham Accords are holding. So thank you for being with us all day. If you still have the energy, go grab a drink and go see David Ignatius. We will be back here in the morning at 9 a.m. to see Secretary Blinken. Thank you all.